Hello and welcome. And just before we dive into today's topic, you might know if you've been watching from the early days when I started around Easter that several times I got in trouble for my untidy collars. So I better just check with Mrs. Clark that it's okay today. Is that okay?
You are rude.
Excellent. Let's get in there. So today we're going to talk a little bit about some of the personal joys and sorrows of the past 8 years while we've been in Leicester, and the joys, of course, of the birth of 4 grandchildren. Ben and Isaac were born as brothers to Max here in Leicester, and James and Esther were born as brother and sister to Beth in Doncaster. So that's brought us great joy. So we've got 6 grandchildren now. Hard to believe that Max is now 8, and they grow up so quickly, don't they? So we've had great joys family-wise, but also great sorrow as well. And we've lost 4 members of our family and 2 very dear friends. Probably the one that hit me the hardest was the loss of my younger brother, Phil. Phil was the baby of 6 of us, and so we fully expected him to be the last one left standing eventually, but he was sadly the first to go. Phil moved to New Zealand to head up Church Army in New Zealand some years ago, and there's really exciting work going on. They had great vision for the future, and then we had a message from Phil to say he'd been diagnosed with cancer of the esophagus, and that really hit us hard. We put that out on the prayer chain with our local church, and within a few minutes, Dave and Margaret, who lived down the road, were at our doorstep, and they came to just pray with us and be with us, and that was something we'll always remember. But anyway, we began praying for Phil. People around the world were praying for Phil, and he actually made a remarkable recovery to health after being very, very poorly and given a very bad diagnosis. In fact, the doctors at one time called him in, not to check why he was ill, but to check why he was so well. So all was looking good, and then it came back again, and eventually Phil died, and it was so hard, not just because we're losing our little brother, because he's in New Zealand, we're in the UK. That made it, I think, a little bit harder. So that was really tough, and I still don't really understand why God allowed that to happen, but his wife Monica was carrying on the work and doing great stuff out there in New Zealand. We did manage to go and visit New Zealand on a couple of occasions. We also both of us lost our mums, and more recently Sue lost her Aunt Joan, who was 96, so she had a good innings, as they say. So family-wise, we've had bereavements, which has not been easy, but we've felt supported by friends here and the rest of our family members. We've also lost 2 very good and long-standing friends, but perhaps you can talk about that.
Yeah. When we arrived here, I kind of arrived on my knees, really, because I've had 2 students that I've been working with as a mentor, and they needed some additional support with their dissertations. And my mum had been in and out of hospital in Hull, and so I felt as if I was either going one way to Sheffield to work or the other way to Hull to support my mum. And I'm not good at packing up the house, and I was sort of exhausted when we arrived. And then my mum wanted to come and be with us, so she came to live with us for a while, and that was really difficult because I'd not got anybody much that I knew around here, and I used to take her out to every supermarket, I think, around, just to get her out of the house for a little while every day. And then she went into a home and died shortly afterwards. The next thing that happened when we were still living at Burston Close was one of our longest standing friends was Anne Smith, who Steve had actually lived with when...
Not in that sense that you might think. I live with her family.
In Norwich, when he was going to be moving down there. And Roger and Anne became very close friends, and they've got 4 boys. And Anne was just an amazing support and encouragement to me during that time, and we've stayed friends ever since. And in latter years, actually, we'd become very close again. And she had breast cancer, and it was terminal, and she died. And I just found that so difficult to come to terms with, and still miss her wisdom in my life.
Anne was a great lady of faith, along with her husband Roger.
Mm-hmm.
So though we know that she's now with the Lord, free from pain, that really hit us hard as well.
And then some other friends, Les and Marjorie, who we'd been friends with since we'd been in Hull. Marjorie was really the one who was part of the church, and Les sort of turned up on specials. And Les was a builder, and he came and built our extension in Norwich on the house that we had. And somehow during that time that he spent with us, he came to faith. And things changed after that. And they used to come and have holidays with us, and we've been friends for a long time. We'd just actually been to see them on the Friday, hadn't we, in Hull?
We spent a little time in Hull because it was the City of Culture that year. So we'd actually seen things we'd never seen while we lived in Hull.
And we'd been to see Les and Marjorie and had a lovely evening with them. And then on the Monday, we get a message from their daughter saying that Les had been rushed into hospital having had a stroke, and they gave him the wrong medicine, and he died later. But it was a horrible business, really, and it shouldn't have happened. And so that was very difficult to come to terms with.
Indeed. So we've had, as I said, great joys in the birth of our grandchildren, but also really hard losses that have hit us. And that's just a reminder, really, that church leaders, ministers face just exactly the same issues that everybody else does. We're not odd people. Well, we might be odd people, but we're not different in the way that we face all sorts of things. But we also always value the love and care and support that we've received during those times. Tomorrow we're going to begin winding up our journey, or brief reflections through the last 30 years of ministry. We've just missed so many things, but tomorrow we're going to begin to just sum it all up, and what have been perhaps ask the question, what's brought us greatest joy, but also what's been the toughest times that we've had to experience in the ministry. So again, thanks for listening. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow. God bless.